Ever been called outdated by your husband's mistress in front of his entire team? It happened on a Monday morning, floor 27, in that glass conference room. She smirked, telling the room some old versions should make way for the new update. His team shifted. He said nothing. I didn't throw my coffee. I just stepped close, leaned in, and whispered 3 words. I watched her face drain of color. But before I tell you what they were, we have to rewind. My name is Ellie Blackford. I am 34 years old, and I am a senior data strategist at LumaGrid Analytics. My job is to find patterns in chaos. I look at millions of disconnected data points and tell executives where the market is going, what their customers are thinking before they do, and why their revenue is bleeding out. I am, by professional definition, a predictor of the future, which is why the irony is so thick I can barely breathe. I'm standing outside a glass conference room on the 27th floor of the Skyline Hub Center in downtown Portland. This isn't my building. My office is 12 blocks away, full of quiet analysts, the hum of servers, and the smell of stale coffee. This place, Sentier Logistics, is Chris's territory. It smells like aggressive citrus cleaner, ambition, and the specific kind of burnt espresso that signals a company is trying too hard. The air in these rooms is always too cold, recycled to the point of tasting like aluminum foil. I'm supposed to be here. I'm the supportive wife. I push open the heavy glass door. The room goes quiet. Not completely, but the collective murmur of 30 people drops 3 decibels. This is their all-hands innovation demo. Chris Andrews, my husband of 7 years, is at the front. He's standing next to a 90-inch 4K screen displaying a graph that I know, for a fact, is creatively optimistic. He is the operations lead, the guy who makes the trains run on time. And standing next to him, practically sharing the same PowerPoint slide, is Lena Ortiz. I find a seat in the back, near the HR director, who is pretending to be fascinated by her laptop. I scan the audience. This is Chris's team: marketing, tech, sales. I know some of them from awkward corporate holiday parties where I drank too much mulled wine. Their eyes are fantastic. It's a 3-stage reaction. First, the quick, sharp glance of, "Oh, that's her." Then the immediate, guilty look away, as if they've been caught staring. Then comes the slower, softer look, the one soaked in pity. I see Jen from marketing, who I hosted for Thanksgiving 2 years ago, suddenly become fascinated by a smudge on her glasses. I see Kyle from tech, who Chris plays fantasy football with, physically shrink in his chair, trying to merge with the upholstery. And finally, the look shared between 2 junior sales guys by the whiteboard. Oh crap, this is going to be a drama. They're right, but not the kind they're expecting. Lena Ortiz is 26. She's the UX strategist. She's wearing a pale green midi skirt and stark white sneakers, the kind that cost $300 specifically to look like they cost $20. Her hair is that perfect, effortless-looking dark wave. She gestures with her whole body and speaks in that smooth, upward-inflecting cadence that sounds like a personified TikTok feed. She is the physical manifestation of new and improved. She and Chris are tag-teaming the presentation. He provides the gravitas, the operational synergy. She provides the frictionless user journey and the buzzwords. They have a rhythm. It's practiced. It's intimate. He finishes a sentence. She picks it up without a pause. They get to a slide comparing their old logistics model to the new one. Lena takes the clicker from him, her fingers brushing his. "The old platform was fine for its time," she says, beaming at the VP of sales, who is sitting right in the front row. "But we found it was struggling to integrate with new APIs. It was resistant." She laughs, a light, airy sound designed to signal collaboration. "You know, some people and some systems, they just have a hard time adapting to the new. They get stuck." She pauses, scanning the room, landing on me. Her smile doesn't falter. She's searching for the word, though she already knows exactly what it is. They're just outdated. The room tightens. The air conditioning hiss seems to get louder. A few people cough. The sales guys chuckle nervously. The HR director's typing stops. Completely. I watch Chris, my husband. He just smiles. He runs a hand through his perfectly styled hair and actually adds to it. "Yeah, Ellie knows all about that," he says to the room, his voice projecting. He's trying to make it a joke, a loving jab. "She works with old data, old models over at Lumagrid. She's our resident expert on being cautious." Cautious, outdated, in a room full of 4K screens, fiber optic speeds, and people who measure their lives in refresh rates. This isn't just an insult. It's a diagnosis. It's a business strategy. She is the new acquisition, the disruptive technology. I am the legacy system, the mainframe that's too clunky, too slow, and costs too much to maintain. And Chris, the COO of our 7-year merger, is just nodding along with the new consultant, agreeing that it's time to sunset the old hardware. The corporate jargon of my own life is choking me. Here's the thing they don't know. The Ellie Blackford they think is sitting here, the outdated model, is supposed to do one of two things: cry or scream. She's supposed to throw her lukewarm coffee at Lena's crisp white sneakers. She's supposed to stand up and shout, "How dare you!" and accuse Chris of sleeping with her, right here, in front of the VP and the entire HR department. That Ellie would be satisfying. That Ellie would give the tech bros a story for the rest of the quarter. But a person who has spent 18 months planning, a person who has audited every single asset, every email, every line of credit, and every falsified expense report, a person who has already built the predictive model for this exact moment, she doesn't flip the table. She doesn't break the game when she's finally at the high score. She waits for the climax. My heart isn't racing. That's the strange part. It's slow. A steady thump, thump, thump in my ears. The data strategist in my brain has taken over. This is just execution. I let the presentation finish. They field 2 softball questions from the VP. Chris is glowing, high on his own supply, high on the thrill of getting away with it. I stand up. The room watches me again. I pick up my bag. I walk down the center aisle, past the pitying faces and the curious ones, not toward the exit, toward the front of the room, toward them. The sound of my heels on the polished concrete floor is the only sound. Click. I stop right in front of Lena. She's shorter than I realized. She has to tilt her head back slightly to look me in the eye. I can smell her perfume. It's expensive. Something floral trying to cover up something sharp. I can see the tiny, tiny tremor in her eyelid. She knows, on some primal level. She went too far. I can see Chris's hand, the one holding the presentation clicker, tightening. His knuckles are white. He's bracing for the scene he thinks is coming. Even the HR director in the back is leaning forward. Her face a perfect mask of professional concern. I know that I only need 3 words, 3 simple words, delivered at the right time, to the right person, and my entire 18-month plan detonates. The personal layer, the professional layer, all of it. I lean in, close enough to feel the heat coming off her skin, close enough that the microphone on the table won't catch it. I see her swallow. I open my mouth. But wait, that's not fair. You haven't seen the data set. All right, rewind. Rewind 14 months. Back to when I was still living in what I thought was a perfectly normal marriage in Portland. Back when I still believed Chris Andrews was a good man. I look past Lena's terrified face, past Chris's frozen smile, and catch my own reflection in the floor-to-ceiling glass of the conference room. For a second, the woman standing there sharp, cold, and ready blurs. She overlaps with an older image, a softer one, the image of a wife who still trusted him. Let's start there. 14 months ago, my life was stable. It was plotted, predictable, and secure. I lived in a gray craftsman house in a quiet neighborhood in Portland, Oregon. We had the requisite small, neatly edged lawn that was perpetually damp 9 months out of the year, and friendly neighbors who waved but didn't pry. We had a rescue dog, a terrier mix with an anxiety disorder and an overbite, named Pixel. We were, by choice, child-free. We'd had the conversation early on, agreeing that our lives and careers were fulfilling enough. We were the cool aunt and uncle, The ones who brought the expensive wine to baby showers and left before the diaper game started. Our life was curated, comfortable, and by all metrics, successful. At the center of that life was Chris Andrews, 35 years old, an operations lead at Centier Logistics, and the most charming man in any room he entered. Chris was the extrovert to my introvert. He was the one who knew how to grill burgers perfectly at a backyard barbecue, who could charm the waiter into giving us a better table, who always knew which wine to open at a company party. He was loved. People genuinely liked him. He had an easy laugh and a way of making everyone feel like they were in on the joke. Our marriage, then in its 7th year, ran like a well-managed project. I was the long-term planner, the one who handled the mortgage, the investments, the 401k contributions. My spreadsheets were a thing of beauty. Chris was the head of diplomacy. He dealt with contractors, charmed our relatives, and handled all the day-to-day social negotiations that I found exhausting. We weren't perfect, but we looked fine. We were the stable couple our friends came to for advice. The house was in my name. It had been a practical decision. When we bought it, my credit score was a pristine 810. His was hovering in the low 600s after a few bad business decisions before he met me. I remember sitting at the title office, signing what felt like 100 documents. The mortgage broker, a tired-looking woman named Brenda, had looked at me over her glasses and said, "Just you on the loan, dear." Chris had laughed it off, putting his arm around my shoulder. "Ellie's the finance brain. I'm just here to look pretty." I'd signed the last page, the data strategist in me satisfied. It was a logical allocation of resources. I saw it as a joint investment in our future, our equity, our shared life. It never occurred to me that a future might come where joint was a word we'd have to litigate. Our weekends were a Portland cliché. Saturdays started with a hike in Forest Park with Pixel, followed by brunch at a place that served artisanal toast for $12. Sundays were for laundry, meal prep, and maybe a trip to a craft brewery with friends. We attended birthday parties, hosted Thanksgiving, and debated which Netflix series to binge next. From the outside, we were the quintessential American middle-class couple. We were doing everything right. I first heard her name on a Tuesday. I was making dinner, and Chris was leaning against the kitchen island, scrolling through his phone. "This new girl at work is a killer, in a good way," he said, not looking up. "Lena Ortiz. She's a total UX genius. Just ripped apart our old intake flow. And honestly, she's right. It's crap." "Oh yeah," I said, stirring the risotto. "Is she good?" "She's fast," he said, finally looking up, his eyes bright. "And sharp. She's making the whole team feel young again. It's refreshing." Lena, just a name, a hypothetical colleague, a kid, as he called her, who was good at her job. I filed the name away under Centier Logistics team and didn't think about it again. A week later, we were on the couch. I was scrolling through something on my phone, a model that was 3 years old. It was perfectly functional, but the battery was starting to go. Chris nudged me with his foot. "God, you're still using that thing. It's an antique." I locked the screen. "It works. It holds my apps. It's fine." "Babe, it's outdated," he chuckled. "Seriously, it's slow. Just let me get you a new one." I smiled, leaning my head on his shoulder. "This outdated thing saves all our passwords. Mister, don't you forget it. It knows all your secrets." "Ha," he said, kissing the top of my head. "Good thing I don't have any." It was a light moment, a simple domestic joke, but I'd log it later. The motif, the central theme, had been established, outdated. The change was subtle. It started, as I guess these things often do, with time, specifically, Thursdays. For 7 years, Chris had been a 9 to 6 guy. He valued his evenings. Suddenly, he had busy Thursdays. The first time, he called around 5:30. "Hey, babe, it's going to be a late one. We've got an emergency at the West Side warehouse. Don't wait until dinner." "Oh, is everything okay?" "Yeah, just a massive shipment error." I've got to be here to oversee the night shift. It's a mess. It sounded plausible. Operations leads deal with warehouse emergencies. I ate my risotto alone, watched 2 episodes of a show we were supposed to be watching together, and fell asleep with Pixel curled at my feet. He came in sometime after midnight, smelling like cold air and faint. Unfamiliar soap. The next week, it was another Thursday. Late night strategy session, he texted. Pushing this new Q4 initiative through. Order yourself some Thai. The week after that. Client emergency. Warehouse again. I'm a data strategist. I am paid, and paid well, to find the pattern. 3 data points are enough to draw a line. 3 consecutive Thursdays. A small, quiet alarm pinged in the back of my mind. It was a low-level anomaly warning. Just a little flag in the data, but it was my data, my life, and in your own life, you are spectacularly good at relabeling the outliers. He's just working hard, I told myself. He's ambitious. He wants that promotion. This is what supportive wives do. They trust. They don't audit their husband's schedule. So I silenced the alarm. I normalized the data. I told myself it was fine. He was fine. We were fine. The Thursday problem wasn't just Thursdays. It mutated. Late-night strategy sessions on Tuesdays. Client emergency calls that required him to step outside into the backyard. Phone pressed to his ear on a Sunday afternoon, but Thursday remained the anchor. It was the statistical mode, the recurring, predictable variable in an equation that was becoming increasingly unbalanced. He'd come home smelling of cold night air and exhaustion, and I'd mistake the exhaustion for hard work, not other kinds of exertion. Then came the phone. Chris was never attached to his phone. He was the guy who'd leave it in the car overnight, who missed texts for hours. Suddenly, his new iPhone was a vital organ. It acquired a new passcode, one he didn't share. Just a new work protocol, babe, he'd said. It is cracking down. It stopped living on the kitchen counter. Screen up, where I could see notifications pop up. It lives screen down, always, on the nightstand. It was screen down, on the dinner table. Screen down. It was a subtle, physical, do not disturb sign aimed directly at me. He started taking it to the bathroom when he showered. He took it with him when he took Pixel out for a 5-minute walk around the block. I'd never seen him love an inanimate object so much. Work is just insane, he'd say, tapping away. I have to be on call 24/7. And I, the woman whose entire career was built on the fact that nobody is truly on call 24/7 unless they're an emergency surgeon or launching a satellite, nodded and said, That sounds tough, hun. The physical changes started about a month later. Babe, I feel like crap, he announced one morning, pinching his stomach. I feel old. I'm joining a gym. It wasn't the $20 a month chain we occasionally went to together. He signed up for a boutique fitness club downtown, one of those places with minimalist concrete walls, eucalyptus-scented steam rooms, and classes called Forge or Catalyst. It cost over $200 a month. I was proud of him. That's great, honey, I said, genuinely. Self-care is important. I even offered to pay half the membership fee from the joint account as a motivator. Then came the clothes. He replaced his comfortable, worn-in jeans with dark, slim-fit denim that cost a fortune. His old university hoodies were replaced by merino wool sweaters and crisp, fitted button-downs, and the cologne. He'd worn the same clean, citrusy scent since I met him. One evening, he came home from a late gym session, smelling different. It was musky, woody, and complex. Expensive. New cologne, I asked, burying my nose in his neck. Yeah, just a sample they were giving out at the gym, he said. A little too quickly. You like it. It wasn't that I didn't like it. It was that it wasn't him. But he was trying. I saw a man in his mid-30s trying to take care of himself, and I wanted to be the wife who supported that. I didn't want to be the wife who questioned it. If you really want to find the truth, ignore the words, follow the money, as the designated finance handler. I'm the one who reconciles the joint credit card statement at the end of the month. The charges started small, a $7 coffee here, a $19 coffee there. But the locations were wrong. He was buying coffee in Lake Oswego at 7 in the morning on a day he was supposed to be at the downtown warehouse. Then came the rideshare receipts, dozens of them. Trips from his office not to our home, but to the Pearl District, ending at 9 at night. Trips from the Pearl District to his office, time-stamped at 10 in the morning on a weekday, and the cocktail bars, charges for 2 drinks, $65, at a sleek downtown lounge called the Alibi, on a Thursday night. When I asked him, he was smooth. "Oh, that was a client meeting. I had to buy a round for the new reps. They have insane expense accounts." The business hotels. The team crashed at a business suite near the airport after the warehouse fire. Cheaper than everyone getting rideshares home at 3 a.m. It all sounded plausible, annoying, but plausible. The real masterpiece of deception came about 2 months into this. He sat me down on the sofa, looking earnest. "Babe, I was reading this article. We are bleeding airline miles. Our joint card has a terrible rewards program." He proposed we open a new, premium travel card. "We'll put all our shared expenses on it: groceries, utilities, dinners, and we'll be in Hawaii for free by next year." He was speaking my language. Optimization, efficiency. It made perfect data-driven sense. We got the card. It was shiny and metal, and almost immediately, he took over the spending on it. "I'll handle the groceries this week," he'd offer. "I'll pay the internet bill. Just send me the link." He was consolidating his spending onto a new platform, one he knew I'd be looking at for the total balance, not for the individual transactions. I was busy with a huge project at Lumagrid. I was working 60-hour weeks. I just used my own personal card for my own things, and let him manage the shared expenses. He was building his own private, obfuscated ledger, right under my nose, funded by our joint account. The universe did try to warn me. I got a text one afternoon from a colleague. "Sarah." It was a screenshot of a meme she'd seen on Instagram, posted by some local food blogger. The meme itself was stupid, something about the tragedy of avocado toast. But in the background, out of focus on the restaurant's patio, was a man. His back was mostly to the camera, but I knew that blue merino sweater. I knew the shape of his head. He was leaning in, laughing, talking to someone. All I could see of the someone was a mass of long, dark hair and a slender arm. Sarah's text read, "Isn't this Chris Lowell? Funny seeing him in the wild." I stared at it. He was supposed to be in back-to-back meetings at Sentier all day. I texted him, "Weird. Sarah just sent me a pic of someone who looks just like you at a brunch spot." He replied almost instantly, "Ha, wasn't me. Must have a doppelganger. I'm buried in spreadsheets. This Q4 push is killing me." I replied to Sarah, "Crazy, right? Not him. He's stuck at work." I dismissed the data point. Anomaly. False positive. The final lock clicked into place a week later. Chris became obsessed with security. He insisted we upgrade our entire home system. Smart locks, a smart thermostat, and security cameras for the front and back doors. "You're home alone sometimes when I'm working late," he said, his voice full of manufactured concern. "It'll make me feel better knowing you're safe." He bought the whole package. He installed it himself, and naturally, he set up the account. He was the primary admin. I was just a user. I got notifications when the door unlocked, but he controlled the permissions. He suggested we turn on location sharing on our phones, too. That way, if one of us is in an accident or our phone dies, the other knows exactly where we are. It was all framed in the language of care, of protection. He was just a husband worried about his wife. He was just a man working hard for a promotion. He was just taking care of his health. Looking back, it's humiliating. I am a woman who builds predictive models based on fragmented user behavior. I can tell a company when a customer is 95% likely to churn based on 3 website clicks and a change in call center frequency. All the signs were there. The schedule deviation, the new, secure communication device, the sudden, unexplained resource allocation to personal grooming, the financial anomalies in one account, and the creation of a new, less transparent one, the third-party sightings. The establishment of a surveillance system where he held all the admin keys. If this had been a client's data set, I would have walked into the boardroom, pointed to the heat map, and declared a high-probability security breach, a catastrophic failure. But it was my marriage. It was my husband. So I did what so many smart people do when faced with data they don't want to see. I contaminated the sample. I told myself it was fine. I labeled every single screaming, flashing red flag as normal operations. The denial held until my 34th birthday. It was a Tuesday. Chris had made a big deal about it for weeks. He'd made reservations at the Perch, one of those rooftop bars where the cocktails cost $20 and the view is the main ingredient. He'd been talking it up. Just you and me, babe. We'll celebrate properly. I left work early. I put on the good black dress, the one he always said he liked. I did my hair. I was ready by 7. Pixel was sitting by the door, waiting for the signal that we were about to leave. At 7:15, the phone rang. It wasn't a text, a call. That's how I knew it was bad news. Ellie, babe, I am so sorry. His voice was a performance of stress. You're not going to believe this. The sprinkler system at the East warehouse just went off. The whole place is flooded. It's a total catastrophe. I sank down onto the arm of the sofa. Oh no, is everything ruined? It's bad. Elle, it's really bad. Look, I'm going to be here all night. The fire department is here. I've got to talk to the shift managers. It's a nightmare. I can't make it. Please don't wait. I looked at my reflection on the dark television screen. Okay, yeah, no, that sounds awful. Okay, well, let me know if you need anything. You're the best. I promise I will make it up to you. Happy birthday. Babe, I'm so sorry. He hung up. I sat there for a long time, in my good dress, listening to the clock tick. Pixel whined, nudging my hand. He knew the going out energy had just died. Well, buddy, I said, my voice too bright. Looks like it's you and me. I took off the dress and the heels. I put on my oldest sweatpants, the ones with the paint stains on the knee. I pulled a frozen pizza from the freezer, one of those expensive gluten-free cauliflower crust ones, and slid it into the oven. I camped out on the sofa with Pixel, the pizza box balanced on my lap, and put on Netflix. I was determined to salvage the night. It was just a birthday. He was just a husband with a demanding job. This is what adult life was. Compromise, flooded warehouses, cauliflower pizza. I felt sorry for myself, but mostly, I just felt tired. Around 10 o'clock, I was scrolling, trying to find a movie that didn't look depressing. The iPad, the one we shared, was on the coffee table. It was connected to his iCloud account. We'd set it up that way ages ago so we could share calendars and app purchases. It was our household device. Its screen lit up. It was a notification from our joint credit card, a charge alert, then another, a rideshare app, then a calendar reminder, then a new email, and another. The screen was suddenly a waterfall of Chris's digital life, all synced and pushed to the device I was holding. I wasn't snooping, not really. It was just there. My fingers felt cold. I tapped the first notification. A charge from a rideshare. Time-stamped at 7:30 p.m. Tonight, the trip started near his office. The trip ended at the Harborview Suites. I frowned. Harborview Suites. That wasn't a warehouse. That was a sleek, overpriced business hotel on the waterfront. It was also, I knew from a Lumagrid company event, a good 20-minute drive in the opposite direction of the East warehouse. Another notification popped up. A hotel check-in confirmation. Welcome to the Harborview Suites. Mr. Andrews, we hope you enjoy your stay. Time-stamped 7:45 p.m. My heart did a slow, painful lurch. No, it's a mistake. He's putting the team up there. The warehouse is flooded. Maybe the fire department. Maybe this is the command center. I was building the alibi for him in real time. Then I saw the email notifications. They were just subject lines, stacked on top of each other in the lock screen preview. From Lena Ortiz. Subject idea for us. Lena O. From Lena Ortiz. Subject, let's keep this off Slack. From Lena Ortiz. Subject, our timeline. And then, the one that made the air go thin in my lungs, from Lena Ortiz. Subject outdated model, the winky face, the casual intimacy of off Slack, the professional blended with the personal. And that word, outdated. I sat there. Frozen pizza congealed in its box. Staring at that word, outdated. A joke he and I shared, a word he'd used on me. Now, here it was, in a subject line from a 26-year-old UX strategist, followed by a digital wink. This wasn't a flooded warehouse. This was a pre-planned, time-stamped, ride-share coordinated hotel rendezvous on my 34th birthday. I didn't cry. I just got very, very cold. I put the iPad down, screen first, on the sofa cushion. I turned off the TV. I took the pizza box to the kitchen, dumped it in the trash, and went to bed. I lay there in the dark, listening for a key in the door. But he didn't come home. The next morning, he walked in around 8 a.m., carrying a box of our favorite donuts. He looked rumpled, tired, but triumphant. "You are a saint," he said, kissing my forehead. He smelled like hotel soap, not smoke or mildew from a flood. It was an absolute nightmare. We were there until 6 a.m., but I think we saved most of the inventory. I poured myself a coffee. My hands were perfectly steady. "Wow, that sounds awful. You must be exhausted." "Beyond." He took a long drink from my mug. I kept my voice light, casual, the voice of a wife just making conversation. "Did you all end up staying nearby?" I saw a notification for the Harborview Suites pop up on the iPad. He didn't even flinch. He laughed. It was a short, scoffing laugh. "Oh, God. Yeah, the East Side warehouse is way out by the airport. By 2 a.m., it was clear we were going to be there all night. I just told the team to get rooms at the Harborview since it's the closest decent place. It was cheaper than paying for everyone's 2-hour round-trip ride shares. Just easier." He was so good. The logic was flawless. It was exactly the kind of practical, operations lead decision he would make. "But why were you checking in at 7:45? I asked. "You told me the flood just happened." His eyes narrowed. The charm vanished, replaced by a cold annoyance. "I was securing the rooms. Ellie, I had to go there, check everyone in, get the keys, and then go back to the warehouse. What is this? Are you auditing me?" And then, the pivot, the beautiful, practiced pivot to victimhood. "You were reading my emails, my notifications. Jesus, Ellie, let's keep this off Slack." That was me and Lena brainstorming about the new logistics platform. The outdated model is the legacy software system we're trying to replace. You know, the one that caused the sprinkler malfunction. It's work. I'm drowning in work. And you're accusing me of what? He looked genuinely hurt. He was a master. He had an answer for everything. He'd already built the firewall. I felt myself flush. He had made me the villain. I was the suspicious wife, the one who snooped, the one who didn't trust him. "I'm sorry," I said, and the words tasted like ash. "I just saw the hotel and I was confused. I was just worried." "It's fine," he said. His voice clipped. He was annoyed now. "I'm just exhausted. I've been putting out fires all night, and I come home to an interrogation. It's not a great feeling." He was right. It wasn't a great feeling. For either of us. I apologized again. I made him breakfast. I chose to believe his story, because the alternative was too big, too catastrophic to process. If you want to believe a lie, you will. His explanation was logical. If you wanted it to be logical, and I wanted it to be, that night, he fell asleep early. The sleep of the exhausted. I was cleaning up the living room, and Pixel, ever the helpful terrier, trotted out of the home office carrying something in his mouth. It was a folded-up wad of paper, slightly damp, pulled from the recycling bin next to Chris's desk. "What do you have, buddy?" I murmured, taking it from him. It was a printout, a draft of a PowerPoint slide. It had fallen out of his work bag. At the top, the title read, "Potential Off-Site Venues, Q4, Innovation Retreat." It was a list. Harborview Suites, Waterfront Vibe. Good Tech, the Timberline. Lodge Mountain, resort feel. Team building, the nines. Downtown luxury. Good for execs. The Allison Inn Spa Wine Country. High end. There were no warehouses on the list. There were no airports. There were just expensive hotels and resorts. I stood in the quiet of my living room, the printout shaking in my hand. This wasn't a last-minute emergency booking. This was a pre-scouted list. I didn't confront him. I didn't wake him up. I took out my outdated phone, the one with the good camera. I laid the paper flat on the kitchen counter, smoothed out the wrinkles and the teeth marks, and I took a picture. Then I folded it carefully, exactly as it had been, and tucked it right back into the side pocket of his work bag, which he'd left by the front door. He would just assume he'd dropped it. This was no longer an anomaly. This was the first data point in a new, terrifying model. And this time, I wasn't going to label it normal. The apology was the last piece of contaminated data I allowed into the system. The moment he left for work, I stopped being a wife. I became an auditor. I sat at my personal laptop, not the shared family computer. I opened a secure browser. I logged into our joint bank account, the new travel rewards credit card, our old joint credit card, and my personal accounts. I downloaded 18 months of transaction history, all of it. I exported everything as a CSV file. There's a specific, sterile feeling to clicking export. You reduce arguments, birthdays, apologies, and lies into simple rows. Date, timestamp, vendor, amount, category. It felt like pulling up an X-ray of my own chest, looking for the shadow on the lung, the hairline fracture in the rib. The data doesn't lie. It has no motive. It just is. I opened a new Excel workbook. I imported the data, thousands of lines. I started to clean the data, tagging Chris's known work expenses, our shared utilities, my personal spending. Then I started to build the pivot table. I dragged date into the rows. I dragged vendor and amount into the values. I created a filter for day of week. I clicked Thursday. The screen refreshed, and there it was, a clear, undeniable pattern. Thursday, 7:15 p.m. Rideshare, 18:50. Thursday, 7:40 p.m. The Alibi, $6,800. Thursday, 9:50 p.m. Rideshare, 14:20. Thursday, 9:50 p.m. Harborview Suites, $349,000. Week after week. The vendors changed. Sometimes it was The Alibi, sometimes a different bar called the Gilded Lily, sometimes a restaurant I'd never heard of. The hotels changed, to the Harborview, the Sentinel, the Hoxton, but the pattern was a statistical certainty, a bar, followed by a hotel, almost always on a Tuesday or a Thursday. The rideshare apps told the rest of the story. I mapped the drop-off points. They all centered around a single, 4-block radius. The warehouse district he claimed to be in was 5 miles away. And then I saw the new variable, Riverside Lofts. It was a brand new, obscenely expensive apartment building in the south waterfront. I saw rideshare trips to Riverside Lofts from his office at lunchtime. I saw trips from Riverside Lofts to his office at 9 in the morning. I saw charges at the Artisan coffee shop on the ground floor of that exact building. This wasn't just cocktails and hotel rooms. This was a second life. He had a home base. The pattern was so clear, it was beautiful. It was a perfect heat map, a glowing red cluster of infidelity. Right there in column F, all his excuses, the flooded warehouses, the client meetings, the late-night sessions were just noise, bad data designed to skew the trend line, but the trend line was undeniable. Next, I went into my email. I searched for DocuSign. Adobe Sign. Your signature is required. I'm meticulous with my digital signatures. I read everything, but my inbox was full of confirmation your document has been signed emails for things I had no memory of. Chris had access to my laptop. He knew my password, my saved signature, my legal electronic Ellie Blackford was cached in the system. He hadn't needed to forge it. He just needed to click Apply. I opened the first one, a reimbursement form for Sentier Logistics. He had submitted an expense report for a team-building dinner. The charge was for $280 at a French restaurant I knew was incredibly romantic. The attendees listed were C. Andrews, L. Ortiz. The report had been kicked back by finance for being over the per diem limit, so he had resubmitted it. But this time, he'd accidentally charged the joint travel rewards card instead of his corporate card, and to justify it, he'd needed a secondary signature. He had signed my name, Ellie Blackford, approving a dinner for $280 from our joint account. For him and his mistress, I opened the next one. The Innovation Retreat, Harborview Suites. My birthday. It was a corporate booking form. He had listed himself as the primary guest, and in the field for additional guest spouse, he had written L. Ortiz. He'd used our joint card to secure the room, and when finance asked for spousal approval for the non-employee guest, he had clicked apply with my signature. I was paying for my own birthday to be ruined. My own money, my own name, was booking their hotel room. My hands were shaking. This was beyond cheating. This was a fraud. This was theft. He wasn't just building a new life. He was using my identity as the raw material. I kept digging, and I found the twist. I found the file that stopped my heart. It was a bill, an invoice from a vendor I didn't recognize, Cascade Fertility Partners. The invoice was for a new patient consultation preliminary workup. The amount was high, over $900. It had been paid. Again, from the joint travel card. The patient name listed on the invoice was Ellie Blackford. I stared at it. Child-free by choice. That was our pact. It was the one thing we were always 100% aligned on. I had never been to a fertility clinic. I had never wanted to go. My blood ran cold. Was he trying to get her pregnant and billing it to me? But the name was mine. I picked up my phone. My voice, when I called the clinic's billing department, was a flawless imitation of a slightly confused, busy professional. Hi there, I'm just reviewing my statements, and I see a charge from last month. For a new patient consultation, my name is Ellie Blackford. I'm just trying to reconcile my accounts, and I don't seem to have the summary for that visit. Would you be able to email it to me? The billing coordinator was cheerful. Oh, sure, Ellie. Let me pull that up for you. Yep. I see you here. Oh, she paused. Actually, honey, it looks like that consultation was canceled. Canceled, I said, my pulse hammering in my throat. I thought it was paid. Well, yes. The new patient fee is non-refundable if canceled within 24 hours, which this was. Let me see. Yes, it looks like, oh, that's right. The notes say the appointment was canceled last minute by the patient's husband. He called in for you. I held the phone so tightly my knuckles ached. He had made an appointment, in my name, at a fertility clinic, and then canceled it, knowing we would still be on the hook for the nearly $1,000 fee. Why, it was a test, a data probe. He was testing the limits of our joint account, seeing if a large, bizarre, intensely personal charge of almost $1,000 would get flagged by me, and when I didn't notice because I was busy, because I trusted him, because he was managing the shared card, he got his answer. The gate was open. He could spend anything, and I wouldn't see it. This was the last piece of evidence. This was malicious. I hung up. I put all the files, the CSVs, the screenshots of the signatures, the PDF of the fertility clinic bill into a password-protected folder. My first call was to Naomi, my best friend from college, now a partner at a labor and employment law firm in Seattle. She dealt with corporate malfeasance and hostile executives for a living. I didn't cry. I just laid out the data points. Naomi, I have a situation. My husband is having an affair with a subordinate. He is expensing their hotels and dinners to a joint credit card and filing them as team expenses. He has used my electronic signature to approve at least 2 of these charges, one of which was a hotel room listing her as the guest, and he has billed a $900 fertility clinic consultation in my name, which he then canceled. There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. Ellie, she said finally, her voice stripped of all friendship, replaced by the lawyer. This is not a divorce. This is a crime. This is financial abuse, wire fraud, and identity theft. You are not a scorned wife, You are a material witness. What do I do? I whispered. You do nothing, she said, her voice hard. You do not confront him. You do not cry. You do not change the locks. You do not even look at him differently. You are a rock. You are a gray, boring rock. You will continue to gather evidence. You will screenshot everything. You will not. Under any circumstances, tip your hand. He thinks you're outdated, right? He thinks you're slow. Let him. His arrogance is your single greatest asset. After I hung up with Naomi, I did one last thing. I opened an anonymous browser tab. I went to Instagram. I searched for Lena Ortiz. Her profile was public. It was a curated masterpiece of the 26-year-old hustle. Selfies in the mirror at the boutique gym Chris had joined. Lattes held up against a backdrop of artisan wallpaper. Sunsets from a balcony that I now recognized as belonging to the Riverside Lofts. I scrolled and scrolled. There was a picture of her at the Allison Inn Spa, clinking a champagne glass with someone just out of frame. Amazing innovation retreat, the caption read. The date matched one of Chris's warehouse emergencies. I zoomed in the reflection of her champagne glass. I could just make out the shape of the person holding the camera. I kept scrolling. A photo of her at the Harborview Suites, wearing a plush white robe, holding a coffee cup. Room with a view. She'd captioned it. The date was my 34th birthday, and then I found it. A group photo from a team hike. There she was, smiling, arms slung around two other coworkers, and in the background, partially obscured, was a man. He was looking away, talking to someone else, but I saw him. It was Chris. He was wearing the gray Patagonia jacket I bought him for our 5th anniversary, the one he said he lost at the gym 3 months ago. Lena had been careless. She'd cropped his face out of the main shots, but she'd missed the background. She'd missed the reflections. She didn't clean her data. I screenshotted everything, the posts, the dates, the locations. I cross-referenced the geodata from her posts with the timestamps on his credit card charges. They were a perfect one-to-one match. I closed the laptop. The audit was complete. The model was built. It was no longer a question of if, it was a question of when and how. I met Naomi at a bland, anonymous coffee shop in a strip mall, the kind of place with beige walls and bad art that no one ever remembers. It was halfway between my office and hers. I didn't come with tears. I came with a laptop. I opened the encrypted drive and presented my findings. I walked her through the Excel file, the pivot tables, the heat map glowing red over the Riverside Lofts, and the Harborview Suites. I showed her the folder of screenshots, his texts, Lena's Instagram, the rideshare receipts. I finished with the 2 PDF files, the hotel folio for my birthday, listing Els Ortiz as the guest but my signature on the authorization, and the $900 invoice from the fertility clinic, in my name. Naomi didn't speak for a full minute. She just stared at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. She closed the laptop. Okay, she said, her voice flat and cold. This was not my college friend. This was the lawyer. He's not just a cheat, Ellie. He's a walking, talking, criminal liability, and his liability is your leverage. What does that mean? Legally? It means we pivot, she said. You're in Oregon. It's an equitable distribution state. The court doesn't really care about the affair itself. They won't punish him for it. But this, she tapped the laptop, this is not an affair. This is dissipation of marital assets. This is fraud. This is identity theft. The court cares very much about that. We're not going to ask for a fair split. Ellie, we're going to demand a recovery. She leaned forward, her eyes sharp. So here's the plan. We're building your exit strategy. Phase 1 starts today. It was like a project kickoff meeting for the rest of my life. First, she said, we built your fortress. You're going to leave here and go to a different bank, a community credit union, somewhere he has never heard of. You will open a checking and a savings account in your name only. You will bring your last 2 pay stubs and reroute your direct deposit from LumaGrid. All of it, starting with the next pay cycle. Okay, I can do that. Second, We do an asset inventory. Right now. The house. It's in my name, I said. The deed is solely in my name. The mortgage. Mine. Just mine. His credit score was in the low 600s when we bought it. The broker wouldn't even consider adding him to the loan. Naomi let out a low whistle. Ellie, that is the single smartest thing you have ever done. It's your house. He is a guest. He has no claim to the equity he didn't pay into. What about the car? My Subaru is paid off. Bought it before the wedding. His truck, I said, feeling a small, grim smile, is financed to the hilt, entirely in his name. I'm pretty sure he's about $10,000 underwater on the loan. This is beautiful, Naomi said. She looked genuinely impressed. He lives in your house, drives a depreciating liability, and has been systematically stealing from you to fund his new life. He has built his own trap. All we have to do is spring it. I left the coffee shop feeling cold, clear, and focused. I drove to a small credit union across town. The process felt surreal. Onboarding myself into a new life, I thought. I filled out the paperwork, opened the accounts, and logged into my LumaGrid payroll portal. With 3 clicks, my 6-figure salary was redirected. My entire financial identity was now firewalled. I transferred my personal savings, keeping the joint accounts active. I left just enough of a buffer in the joint checking to cover the utilities and his usual spending, so he wouldn't get an alert. He was too busy to notice. That night, Naomi called again. I've been thinking, Phase 2, the professional angle, this isn't just a domestic issue. He committed fraud against his company using your identity. Sentier needs to know. How do I do that without looking like a vindictive wife? You don't, she said. You give the information to someone who isn't your wife. I have a friend, Mark, who works in compliance for a Fortune 500 company. He owes me a favor. He'll give you 10 minutes, off the record, on how to package this. Mark was, as promised, concise. Forget HR, he said over the phone. His voice clipped and fast. HR is there to protect the company from lawsuits. They'll see a messy divorce. You go to compliance or the chief financial officer. You don't frame this as an affair. You frame it as a severe financial and ethical risk. A risk? He's a lead. He's sleeping with a direct subordinate. That's a classic sexual harassment lawsuit waiting to happen. He's expending personal items as corporate travel. That's theft. He's using a third-party signature that's you to authorize his own fraudulent reports. That's wire fraud. He isn't a bad husband. Lady, he's an insecure access point. He's a compliance nightmare. Send them the evidence, anonymously or not, and they will vaporize him. I hung up. The plan was no longer a vague idea. It was a 2-pronged strategy. Layer 1. The personal, a clean, devastating divorce. I would file, serve him papers, and have him removed from my house. I would keep my assets, and he would keep his debt. Layer 2. The professional. I would provide Sentier Logistics with a tidy, undeniable portfolio of his fraud. I wouldn't have to ruin his career. He had already done that. I was just delivering the performance review. Now came the hard part. I had to go home and keep playing outdated Ellie. I had to smile. I walked in the door. He was on the couch, laptop open, looking stressed. Hey, I said, kissing the air near his head. Tough day. Unreal, he muttered. This Q4 push is just everything, but I think we're onto something big. Oh yeah, I asked, putting groceries away. I placed my phone on the counter, its screen dark, and quietly hit the record audio function. This new platform Lena and I are designing, it's a game changer. It's going to streamline everything. That's great, honey, I said. Is that Lena girl still working out the new UX strategist? Oh, she's amazing, he said, his voice lifting in a way it never did for me anymore. She's a rock star. She just gets it. I listened to him lie. I listened to him praise her, using our kitchen as his confessional. Every word was just another file for the collection. Evidence Audio 01.mp3. I screenshotted the text that came in later, Gonna be another late one. Warehouse stuff. I was no longer a wife. I was an archivist documenting a dead marriage. I had the spending data. I had the audio. But I needed the context. I needed to know what was happening inside Sentier. I needed an internal source. I thought of Maya, a sharp, cynical project manager from Sentier. I'd met at a Women in Tech networking event months ago. We'd had drinks and bonded over the fact that our respective companies were still boys' clubs. She had complained, specifically, about Chris. He's the ultimate ideas guy, she'd said, making air quotes. He floats in, says something vague and inspiring, and then my team has to stay until 10 p.m. figuring out how to actually build it. Then he takes the credit. She already disliked him. She was perfect. I found her on LinkedIn and sent a carefully worded message. Hey Maya, Ellie Blackford here. We met at the Women in Tech Mixer last spring. This is a long shot, but I'm doing some competitive analysis on logistics platforms for a project at Lumagrid. Wondering if I could pick your brain about Sentier's new initiatives over a quick coffee. Strictly off the record, of course. She agreed instantly. We met at yet another beige coffee shop. So, she said, stirring her tea, competitive analysis. Or are you finally realizing your husband is a nightmare? I was so startled I almost dropped my cup. She smiled. A thin, tired smile. Please, the whole floor knows. He and Ortiz are nauseating. They call their own private meetings. They book conference rooms for brainstorming sessions that last for hours. And he's basically promised her a director-level role. Everyone is furious. I had a feeling, I said, dropping the pretense. It's bad. It's a disaster, Maya said. And what's worse, they're padding their numbers. They're building this whole innovation demo on a platform that doesn't work, using metrics that are just pure fantasy. My pulse quickened. A demo. Oh, yeah, it's their magnum opus. The Sentier Future Project. They're presenting in 2 weeks. They've convinced the executive team it's going to revolutionize our entire pipeline. They've invited the board. They've even invited clients. I sat back. A room full of executives. The board, clients. If this goes well, Maya said, her voice dripping with acid. The rumor is Chris is the guaranteed shoo-in for the new VP of Operations slot, and she'll be his number 2. I stared into my coffee. He wasn't just cheating. He was building an empire, a new professional life for himself and his mistress, funded by my money and built on a bed of lies. He was planning his coronation. He was inviting everyone. He was building the stage, hanging the banners, and sending out the invitations. A slow smile spread across my face. He had done all the hard work for me. I just had to show up and change the slides. With the demo day marked on my calendar, my timeline was set. I was no longer grieving. I was executing a project plan. The first phase was financial extraction. My quarterly bonus from Lumagrid, a substantial 5-figure sum, was deposited into our joint account. The following day, my vested stock options cleared. In total, just over $75,000 of my money was sitting in an account he had access to. I logged into my new, secure credit union account. I initiated 2 wire transfers. I moved the $75,000, plus the majority of my personal savings I'd kept in the joint account. I left behind what I called a plausibility fund, enough to cover the mortgage payment, the utilities, and his usual weekly ATM withdrawal and coffee shop charges, enough that no alerts would be triggered. Watching the balance transfer felt like sealing an escape pod. It was a quiet, clean hiss as the airlock engaged. The next day, I met with Naomi's referral, Jessica Price. She was not a comforting, hand-holding divorce lawyer. She was a forensic accountant with a law degree. Her office was glass and steel, and she didn't offer me coffee. I didn't waste her time. I'm not here to cry about the affair, I said, sliding my laptop across her desk. I'm here to file for divorce based on financial dissipation, fraud, and identity theft. The evidence is in a folder labeled Evidence Portfolio Final. She spent 20 minutes in silence. Clicking, she opened the pivot tables. She read the fertility clinic invoice. She played the first 30 seconds of the audio file where he admitted to the warehouse emergency on my birthday. She finally looked up, her expression unreadable. "This is the cleanest pre-divorce package I have ever seen. You've done 90% of my job for me." "I want him out of my house," I said. "That's easy. It's your house. He has no claim. We file the petition. We cite the financial fraud, and we have him served. He'll be ordered to vacate." "Good," I said. "I want to keep my assets, my retirement, and my house. He can keep his truck." "He can keep his truck and his debt," she corrected. "And given the evidence of dissipation, we will be petitioning for him to reimburse you for the marital assets he spent on his affair, including the hotel rooms, the dinners, and that $900 clinic fee." I left her office with a new, crisp folder. The petition was being drafted. The process server was on standby. That night, I initiated Phase 3, the digital lockdown. While Chris was at another late strategy session, I sat at my command center, my personal laptop. I went through our digital life, systematically. Like an exterminator, my personal email, new password, 32 characters, alphanumeric, special symbols, two-factor authentication enabled, tied only to my new phone number, our shared cloud drive, the one with our old vacation photos and his resume drafts. I changed the password. I revoked his access. I downloaded the few files I wanted and scheduled the rest for deletion. My banking portals, my 401k, my investment accounts, all new passwords, all new security questions. Then, the masterpiece, our smart home system. I was still listed as a user. He was the admin. I logged into the main hub. I found his profile. Revoke admin privileges. I demoted him. He was now a guest. He could still use his code to unlock the door, but he could no longer change settings, access the security cameras, or lock me out. I set an immediate alert for my phone if any attempt was made to change the admin settings. He was now a guest in my house, using my utilities, eating my food, and sleeping in my bed, all on borrowed time. The shift was palpable. He came home that night, and I didn't get up from my laptop. I didn't ask him how his emergency went. I didn't offer to heat up dinner. "Hey," he said, standing in the doorway. "Hey," I replied, not looking up. "I'm in the middle of a project." This continued for 3 days. I was polite, I was distant, I was a civil, quiet roommate. The Ellie he knew, the one who would rub his shoulders, listen to his work drama, and coddle his ego was gone. He didn't like it. He got sullen. He got pouty. He started making loud, huffing sighs while working on the sofa. I ignored him. Finally, he cracked. It was a Wednesday night. I was washing the dishes. My back to him. He came up behind me, blocking my exit from the kitchen. He'd been drinking. I could smell the whiskey. "What is wrong with you?" "Elle," he demanded. I don't know. You've been a ghost all week. You barely look at me." I turned off the water. Drying my hands slowly, I kept my voice neutral. "I'm just busy. I have a big deadline." "Bullshit," he said. "That's not it. It's like you're not even trying. It's like you don't care." I let the silence hang. I needed this. I needed the final piece. My phone was on the counter, just behind the fruit bowl. I'd started recording the moment I heard him pour his second drink. "Is this about that Lena thing?" he scoffed. "Is that what this is? You're still hung up on that?" I looked at him, and for the first time, I let a little of the real hurt show. "I don't know. Chris, you lied to me. On my birthday." He saw the opening. He saw the flicker of the old Ellie, the one he could manipulate. He softened his voice, trying to look remorseful. It was a terrible performance. "Look," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Okay, you're right. I got a little too close. It's not what you think. It's just, she's young. She's exciting. She admires me. And it's been a long time since you looked at me like that." I just stared. "What does that mean?" "It means you're always in your spreadsheets," he said, his voice rising in frustration. "You're always worried about the mortgage, or the 401k, or the savings. We don't do anything. We don't have fun. You're so careful. You've gotten—" He paused, searching for the word. The perfect, cruel, devastating word. I don't know. You've gotten a little outdated. I needed something new. Something that made me feel like I was actually moving forward. Bingo. He said it. He admitted the closeness. He admitted his motivation. And he blamed me, using the very word that had become their private joke. I let a single, perfect tear roll down my cheek. I faked a sob. I didn't know you felt that way. His face changed. He thought he'd broken through. He thought he'd won. He moved in to comfort me. Oh, babe, hey, no, it's fine. We're fine. I just needed to be honest. It's just a stupid crush. It's nothing. It's work. I buried my face in his shoulder, my entire body rigid with disgust, and made a small, broken sound. Okay, I whispered. I'm sorry. I'll try to be better. He patted my back, his relief palpable. That's my girl. I went to the bathroom to wash my face. I stopped the recording. I labeled the file Confession Audio Final, MP4. I uploaded it to my secure drive, alongside the pivot tables and the invoices. This was the crown jewel of the collection. The next day, it was time to prime the corporate bomb. I couldn't just drop the evidence on demo day. The shock would be high, but the fallout would be contained by HR. They needed to be looking for it before the presentation. I went to a coffee shop far from my house. I used their public Wi-Fi and a VPN. I created an anonymous, encrypted email address. I sent a single email to the Sentier Logistics Ethics Hotline, and I blind copied the head of compliance, whose email address Maya had helpfully provided. The subject was simple: anonymous concern, financial irregularities, conflict of interest. Operations team, C. Andrews. I didn't include the audio. I didn't include the Instagram photos. I was a concerned employee. I just gave them data. I wish to report a pattern of concern. Recommend auditing all expense reports filed by Chris Andrews for the past 8 months. Specifically, look for charges at hospitality vendors, Harborview Suites, the alibi, the Allison Inn falsely claimed as warehouse emergency or team building. Please cross-reference these dates with the expense reports of junior UX strategist Lena Ortiz. The financial pattern suggests a misuse of company funds and a clear conflict of interest. This behavior is a known liability and is demoralizing the team. I hit send. That was the appetizer. It would get them digging. It would put them in the audience for that demo, not as supporters, but as auditors. Now, for the main course. I opened 3 new draft emails in my personal, secure account, email 1, the professional, to the Sentier HR director, the head of compliance, and the CFO. Subject evidence portfolio, formal complaint. Chris Andrews, Lena Ortiz, financial fraud, identity theft, harassment. Body. Please find attached a comprehensive portfolio detailing systemic financial fraud, forgery of my personal signature on corporate documents, and a hostile work environment created by the relationship between Mr. Andrews and Ms. Ortiz. Attachments. The Excel file, the signed hotel folios, the fertility clinic bill, the audio confession. Email 2, the business, to the Sentier CEO, the COO, and the VP of Sales. The big bosses. Subject urgent. Risk analysis of Sentier Future Innovation Demo. Body. The platform being presented today by Mr. Andrews is based on falsified data. Attached is a comparison of the actual performance metrics provided by internal sources versus the metrics in their slide deck. The platform is not viable, and presenting it to clients is a significant reputational risk. Attachments. Maya's real data slides, side by side with screenshots of Chris's fake ones. Email 3. The personal. I had done my homework. Lena's excited Instagram post tagged her fiancé. Noah. A quick search of the county clerk's records found their wedding registry. They were getting married in 6 months. To Noah, r@gmail.com. Subject. You don't know me, but you deserve to know this. Body. Noah, I am the wife of the man your fiancé is sleeping with. I have no quarrel with you, but I believe in data transparency. Before you make a lifelong commitment, you should see this. The attached items were all paid for with my money. Attachments. The hotel folio for my birthday with Lena's name, the Instagram screenshots, a candid photo Maya had snagged of them kissing in the office parking garage. I looked at the 3 drafts, each one a precision-guided missile. The demo was scheduled for Monday at 10 a.m. I set a scheduled send for all 3 emails. Not at 10 a.m., 10:15 a.m. I wanted them to get started. I wanted them to be comfortable. I wanted Chris and Lena to be in the middle of their victory lap, right before the finish line, 2 days before the demo. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya. It worked. The anonymous tip. Compliance has flagged the demo. They've added 3 VPs and the head of compliance to the invite list. The official reason is observation for leadership development. I smiled. Leadership development. A perfect corporate euphemism for, we are building a case to fire you. The rats were not just walking into the trap. The exterminators were waiting inside. Chris came home that night vibrating with an almost manic energy. He was high on his own success, oblivious, flying at 30,000 feet while I was on the ground painting a target on his runway. He tossed his keys on the counter. Ellie, you will not believe the momentum we have. The demo on Monday is everything. The entire executive team is coming. Even clients are flying in. He poured himself a celebratory whiskey, the one I hadn't bought. Lena is just a key player, a total rock star. She's nailing this. He turned to me, his eyes bright and condescendingly affectionate. If this goes smoothly, and it will, the VP of Operations slot is mine. It's a lock. He was beaming, waiting for his applause. This was the moment. I kept my voice light, almost shy. The wife he wanted. A VP. Wow. Chris, that's amazing. It sounds like a really big deal. It is a big deal, he said, puffing his chest. I paused, pretending to be hesitant, looking up at him through my lashes. You know, I think I'll take Monday morning off. I'd love to come see it, to support you. You know, be your own personal fan club. His face lit up. It was a look of pure, unadulterated relief. He saw it. The reset, the compliant wife, the outdated model finally realizes her place. Babe, yes, he said, pulling me into a hug that I had to endure without recoiling. That's amazing. You have to see this. You'll be blown away by what we've built. Oh, I know I will. I thought, patting his back, I'm counting on it. The day before the demo Sunday, I drove to Jessica Price's empty downtown office for the final signing. The petition was thick. Irreconcilable differences was the official line, but the attachments detailed gross financial dissipation, fraud, and identity theft. I signed my full legal name, Ellie Blackford. It's done, I said. Now, the server, Jessica nodded, pulling up a new form. We need to serve him to establish jurisdiction. We could do it at the house, but that's messy. He could avoid it. No, I said, a cold, hard clarity settling in me. Not the house. I want him to serve at the office, in front of his team. Jessica raised an eyebrow. That's public. It's a public demo, I replied. Let's keep the theme consistent. 10 a.m., Monday, Skyline Hub Center, 27th floor, and the location of the demo itself. Conference room 4A, I said. He'll be there. It's aggressive, Ellie, but it's clean, she made the call. Yes, Mr. Henderson, Skyline Hub Center, 10 a.m. sharp, 27th floor, conference room 4A. The target's name is Chris Andrews. He'll be the one at the podium. That afternoon, I finalized my own presentation. I opened a new PowerPoint file. I kept the design sterile. Clean Sentier's corporate blue and gray. I titled the cover slide, Legacy Systems Risk Notes, a Case Study in Ethical Compliance. It looked boring. It looked like an HR training manual. The subsequent slides were anything but. Slide 2, Pattern Analysis Expense Anomalies. A heat map of downtown Portland, the red cluster glowing over the Riverside Lofts and the Harbor View Suites. Slide 3. Cross-referenced invoices. A side-by-side comparison, his warehouse emergency calendar entry versus the Harbor View Hotel folio with Lena's name. Slide 4. Authorization breach. A screenshot of the fertility clinic invoice. My name clearly visible, next to the timestamp of his cancellation call. Slide 5. Data integrity falsified metrics. The real data Maya gave me next to the fantasy metrics he was presenting, I saved it. Legacy systems, risk notes. Final. I sent it to Maya's personal email. Can you attach this? I wrote. To the meeting invite, just as a supplemental file. Done, she replied. 2 minutes later, it's on the server. Anyone in that meeting can open it. It's just attached documentation. It was planted. 1 click, that's all it would take. Maya called me later that evening. Her voice was different, colder. Ellie, I did some digging on your girl, Lena. And she's not just an ambitious kid. She's a predator. A year before she got to Chris, she was at another firm. There was a senior designer there, a woman named Sarah Jenkins. Brilliant. Apparently, Sarah was her mentor. Lena wanted her job. What did she do? She started a rumor, Maya said, her voice tight with disgust. Told everyone Sarah was sleeping her way up with the VP. Used her personal life against her. Twisted it. The VP panics. HR gets involved. Sarah gets pushed out in a restructuring, and Lena gets her projects and her office. She didn't just sleep with Chris to get ahead. She used that same rumor, sleeping her way up, as a weapon to destroy another woman first. I felt a sickness rise in my throat. This wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just ambition. It was a pattern. Lena wasn't just a mistress. She was a parasite. And she used other women as hosts. My resolve, which had been 99%, clicked over to 100. That night, Chris slept in the guest room. He said he needed to get his head in the game for the demo. The truth was, my coldness had finally made me the uncomfortable one to sleep next to. I was fine with that. I stood in front of my full-length mirror. I took out the outfit I'd bought with my own. Secure money, not a dress, not a skirt, a pair of wide-leg, charcoal gray trousers that moved like liquid, a simple black silk shell, and the blazer. It was beautiful, cream white, structured, with sharp, architectural shoulders. It was the armor of a woman who ran boardrooms. I put on the heels, 3 inches, black patent leather, silent, but deadly. I looked at my reflection. I didn't see a housewife. I didn't see cautious, safe, or old. I saw a data strategist. I saw the CEO of my own goddamn life. I looked, in short, nothing like the woman Chris thought I was. I looked updated. I turned off the lights. Pixel was curled at the foot of the bed, watching me. I crawled under the covers and he immediately snuggled up, pushing his head against my chest. I buried my face in his soft fur, and for the first time in weeks, I let the terror surface. I'm scared, buddy, I whispered into the dark, my voice thick. What if I run? What if I see him, and I just freeze? What if my voice shakes? What if the tech fails? What if he wins? Pixel just sighed, a warm, comforting weight against my ribs. I held him. I was terrified of failing. I was terrified of succeeding. I was terrified of the silence that would come after the explosion. But as I lay there, I realized something. For the first time in 7 years, I was not afraid of him. I was choosing this. I was scared, yes, but I was in control. I picked up my phone one last time. I opened an anonymous email account. I composed a new message. This one wasn't scheduled. This one was for right now. To Noah, r@gmail.com. Subject Sentier Logistics Demo. Monday 10 a.m. You should be there. I kept it short. Noah, I am the wife of the man your fiancée, Lena Ortiz, has been having an affair with for over a year. I have proof that she is engaged in this relationship, and also in corporate fraud. They are presenting their masterpiece tomorrow at 10 a.m. Skyline Hub Center, 27th floor. You don't owe me anything, but you deserve to know who you are planning to marry. You deserve to see the truth for yourself. The choice of what to do with that truth is yours. I attached one single, undeniable image, the parking garage photo Maya had sent, the kiss, the timestamp. I hit send. The stage was set. The audience was invited. The script was locked. I just had to wait for the curtain to rise. I walked into the Skyline Hub Center at 9:55 a.m. The lobby was an anthem of modern success, towering glass walls, polished steel beams, and enormous fiddle-leaf fig trees in concrete pots that probably cost more than my first car. The air was cold, recycled, and smelled faintly of expensive, citrus-based cleaning products. It didn't feel like an office. It felt like a television studio, and I felt like the star of a reality show, the one filmed in unflattering light before the makeover. The 27th floor was buzzing. Conference room 4A was the largest one they had. All glass, overlooking the Willamette River. It was packed. I scanned the back row. Maya, standing near the coffee urn, caught my eye. She gave a single, slow blink, a signal. I followed her gaze to the far left corner. There they were, 3 men in dark blue suits, sitting slightly apart from the main group. Laptops open, the HR director, the chief compliance officer, and a senior VP from the corporate office. They were not on the public invitation list. Their official purpose, Maya had told me, was observation for leadership development. They looked less like mentors and more like a panel of judges, sharp-eyed and bored, just waiting for a reason to disqualify someone. My anonymous tip had landed exactly as planned. "Ellie, you made it." Chris spotted me. He was energized, practically vibrating. He strode over, kissed my cheek a dry public peck, and put his arm around my shoulders, steering me toward the front. He was in his power suit, the one I'd paid to have tailored. "Everyone, hi, settle down," he boomed, his voice full of false bonhomie. "I want to introduce my wife, Ellie." He squeezed my shoulder, a gesture of ownership. "She's here for support. She works over at Lumagrid, doing something incredibly complicated with data, a total brainiac." He laughed, and the tone was unmistakable to me, half pride, half mirth. "So, everyone better have their numbers straight today. She will definitely catch you if you're fudging." A few people chuckled. It was a joke. Look at my smart wife, my quaint, cautious, outdated wife. Then Lena arrived. She didn't just enter the room. She took possession of it. She was wearing a sleeveless, the severe red dress that screamed, "Look at me." She moved like she was the host of this show, and we were all her audience. She walked straight to Chris, stood well inside his personal space, and adjusted his tie. She didn't even glance at me. "Are we ready?" she asked him, her voice smooth and loud. "We are," he said, smiling down at her. "Great." She turned to the room, clasping her hands. "Thank you all for coming. We are so excited to walk you through what we've been building. We think it's going to change everything. We. She used the word like a hammer, forging a new unit in front of everyone, locking them together and leaving me on the outside. She rested her hand on his upper arm. It lingered. A junior tech guy at the main computer was sweating, trying to get the main screen to sync. 1 second. Folks, the display driver is lagging." To fill the dead air, he made the mistake of trying small talk. "Weird morning, right? Did you guys hear that rumor that compliance is doing a full audit on all team expenses?" The shift in the room was electric. The casual chatter stopped. I watched Chris. He didn't move, but he stiffened. His smile became a rictus. His eyes darted for a split second to the men in the back row. Lena, however, was faster. She shot him a look, a micro glance of "shut up," and then she laughed. It was a bright, silvery sound designed to cut the tension. "Oh, Kyle, don't be so dramatic. They do that every quarter. It's just boring bean counting. Are we good?" "Yes, we're good." The screen flickered to life. The Sentier Future, a frictionless logistics model. Lena and Chris took the floor. They had a rhythm, a polished, practiced duet. She would present the vision and the user journey, and he would provide the hard data and the operational impact. The numbers were beautiful, and they were lies. As you can see from our beta test, Chris said, pointing to a graph that soared upward, we are projecting a 42% reduction in processing delays. 42%, Maya's data, the real data, showed a messy, inconsistent 9%, with a high error rate. This new model, Lena chimed in, is already projecting a 60% increase in key client retention, year over year. 60%. The real projection was 12, and that was optimistic. They were not just inflating, they were inventing. They were selling a fantasy. I sat in the front row, the supportive wife, and I counted the lies. 1, 2, 3, 4. I glanced at the back row. The men in suits were not watching the presentation. They were looking at their laptops, their faces grim. They were comparing the fantasy on the screen to the ethics complaint in their inboxes. Then they got to the slide I was waiting for. Old model versus new model. On the left was a screenshot of the old clunky interface, the one my team at Lumagrid had consulted on 5 years prior. On the right was Lena's sleek, white and blue design. Lena stepped forward, the clicker in her hand. She smiled, that wide, confident, 26-year-old smile. Her eyes scanned the room and then, deliberately, landed on me. Now, I want to be clear. The old platform was good for its time, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. I know Ellie here was actually a key part of that original build, which was so solid. She said solid like it meant fossilized. But we found, she continued, that to truly level up, we had to be willing to break things. We had to disrupt the old way of thinking. We had to move on from a lot of outdated methodologies. The word hung in the air. Heavy and sharp, outdated. The room was silent. Every head, even the VPs in the back, was on me. They were waiting. Chris said nothing. He just stood there, smiling, letting her do it. He didn't just let her, he joined her. She's right, he said, laughing. He turned to the VP of sales. Ellie is the original safety-first expert. God loves her. He winked. If we'd listened to her on every point, we'd probably still be running our entire logistics chain on Excel 2003. The room erupted in nervous, sycophantic laughter. The junior staff, seeing their boss make the joke, joined in. They were laughing at me, the boss's wife, the relic. The HR director and the compliance officer exchanged a look. It was not a look of amusement. It was a look of confirmation. I just sat there. I didn't flush. I didn't move. My stillness seemed to unnerve Lena. She wasn't getting the reaction she wanted. She wasn't crying. She had one more bullet. She clicked to the next slide, but her eyes never left my face. The point is, she said, slowly, as if to a child, you have to adapt. You have to be willing to evolve. Because in this business, some systems, if they refuse to update, they're just going to get left behind. She tilted her head, her smile now a weapon. Right. Ellie. It was no longer a subtext. It was a public execution. The entire room held its breath. This was it. This was the moment for the screaming, the crying, the how could you speech. This was the drama they had all been waiting for. I let the silence sit for 1, 2, 3 beats. Then I stood up. Every single person in the room flinched. Chris's smile vanished, replaced by a flash of panic. This was not in his script. I looked at Lena. I let my face crumple. Just a fraction. I let my voice sound small, wounded. Wow, that's quite a take. Lena. I picked up my purse. People in the front row physically leaned away, bracing for me to lunge at her, but I didn't. I didn't walk to the exit. I walked toward the podium. My heels made the only sound in the room. A slow, steady, click, click, click on the polished concrete floor. I stopped right beside her, close enough to smell that floral perfume. She took an involuntary step back. I turned to the room. to the VPs, to the clients. I gave them a small, apologetic smile. "That was a fascinating presentation," I said, my voice perfectly clear, perfectly calm. "And Chris is right. I am a safety-first expert. I specialize in legacy systems." I looked at Chris. "And as a data strategist, I've actually prepared a few brief notes on the risk factors involved." I turned my gaze back to Lena, who was staring at me, her face a mask of confusion. "If you don't mind," I said, "I'd like to share a slightly different perspective on the risks of ignoring what you think is outdated." I stepped past her, took the clicker from the podium, and faced the screen. I was now in control. I stepped forward, taking the clicker. Lena was still staring at me, her mind clearly lagging, unable to process this deviation from her script. Chris looked panicked, opening his mouth to stop me. But I was faster. I turned to Lena, stepping close, so close that the microphone on the podium wouldn't catch the words, so close I could see the tiny pulse in her neck. Her expensive floral perfume couldn't cover the sharp, metallic tang of her stress. I leaned in, just as I had in the fantasy that had replayed in my head for months. I didn't yell, I didn't accuse, I just gave her a simple, technical instruction. 3 words. Refresh your inbox. I took a step back. I looked at the clock on the wall. 10:15 a.m., right on schedule. A single ping echoed from the back row. It was the chief compliance officer, looking down at his phone. Then another ping, from a laptop on the main table. Then another, and another. Suddenly, the room was filled with the sound of alerts, a cascade of pings, buzzes, and chimes. My 3 scheduled emails, the precision-guided missiles I had built, had just landed in over 40 inboxes simultaneously. The HR director's eyes went wide. The VP next to him audibly muttered, "Oh, my God." In the front row, a junior sales guy opened his email. His jaw went slack. They were all seeing it. The zipped portfolio, the spreadsheet detailing the financial dissipation, the invoice for the Harborview Suites on my birthday, with L. Ortiz listed as the guest, the screenshots from her own Instagram, perfectly aligned with the dates of Chris's warehouse emergencies, the $900 invoice from the fertility clinic, in my name, the audio file labeled Confession Audio Final. As the whispers began to rise, I gave Maya a short, sharp nod. She pressed a single key on her laptop. The main projector screen flickered. Lena and Chris's slide, the one with the 60% lie, vanished. It was replaced by my file, Legacy Systems Risk Notes. But it wasn't a graph. It wasn't a chart. It was a high-resolution photograph, the one from the parking garage. Chris, in his blue Sentier-branded hoodie, his back pressed against a concrete pillar. Lena, her hands locked around his neck, kissing him. It was undeniable. And in the bottom right corner, the digital timestamp from the security feed Maya had pulled. It matched the exact date and time of a client visit he had expensed to the company. The room gasped. It wasn't a whisper. It was a physical shock. A vacuum of air. Chris stared at the 90-inch image of his own infidelity, his face the color of ash. He looked like he'd been shot. But Lena looked down at her own phone, which had just vibrated. She was looking at the text I knew was coming, the reply from her fiancé. His message, I'm sure, was simple. Something like, "I'm outside the conference room. Don't bother lying." Her face, her perfectly curated, 26-year-old face, it didn't just go pale, it caved in. The color, the confidence, the ambition, it all evaporated, leaving a waxy, terrified, hollow mask. The hand holding the presentation clicker began to shake. A violent, uncontrollable tremor. She dropped it. It clattered loudly on the floor. "Wait," Chris finally managed to say, his voice cracking, high-pitched. "Wait, that's not what it looks like. This is a misunderstanding. This is a personal matter, Ellie. What are you doing?" He looked desperately at the VPs in the back row. "She's just upset. This is a domestic dispute." "Mr. Andrews, that is enough." The compliance officer's voice cut through the room. It was cold, It was final. He stood up, followed by the HR director and the senior VP. "This demo is over," the officer commanded. "Mr. Andrews, Ms. Ortiz, please step away from the podium and the laptops. Do not touch or delete anything." "This is insane," Chris yelled, finally realizing the trap. "You can't. You are both suspended, with pay, effective immediately, pending a formal investigation into the materials we have just received," the HR director said, his voice flat. "Security will escort you from the building. We will need your badges and your laptops." "Suspended," Lena whispered, her voice watery. No, he told me." The main glass door to the conference room opened. A man in a cheap, rumpled suit, holding a large manila envelope, stepped inside. He was not on any invite list. He scanned the room. "I'm looking for Chris Andrews," he said, his voice booming in the dead silence. Chris, who was still staring at the HR director, spun around. "I'm Chris Andrews. Who are you?" The man walked directly to him, parting the silent, staring crowd. He didn't look at the screen. He didn't look at me. He had a job to do. "Mr. Andrews," the man said, pushing the thick envelope against Chris's chest. "You have been served." Chris didn't even take it. His arms were numb. The envelope hit his sternum and fell to the floor with a dull thud. "You have been served with a petition for the dissolution of your marriage," the man recited, his voice monotone, performing the legal ritual. "You have 20 days to respond." Chris just stared at the papers at his feet, the document that legally ended his life, and as if this tableau were not yet complete, a new figure appeared in the open doorway. It was Noah, Lena's fiancé. He was well-dressed, his face composed. He wasn't crying. He wasn't angry. He just looked done. He didn't make a sound. He didn't yell. He walked past the process server, past me. He walked right up to the front table where Lena was standing, frozen, tears now streaming silently down her face. He didn't say a word to her. He just looked at her for 3 seconds. Then he reached into his pocket, took out the diamond engagement ring, and placed it quietly on the table, right next to the clicker she had dropped. He turned and walked out of the room. He didn't slam the door. It was the cleanest, most final execution I had ever seen. The room was a ruin. Chris was staring at the divorce papers. Lena was staring at the ring. The entire team was staring at their shoes, avoiding the 90-inch screen where the kiss was still projected, a monument to their own stupidity. I picked up my purse. I turned to the HR director, who was now watching me. "I have no further comments regarding your internal investigation," I said, my voice clear and steady. "My only purpose here was to formally separate my life, my finances, and my legal signature from a man who has shown profound contempt for both his marriage and his professional ethics, and from a woman who built her career by destroying other women." I nodded at them. "Thank you for your time." I turned. I walked past Chris, who was still frozen. I walked past the staring faces of his team. I walked out of the glass doors and into the hallway. I didn't look back. That afternoon, I went home. The house was silent. I walked to the smart home panel by the door. I logged in as the administrator. I navigated to the user settings. Chris Andrews, delete user, guest, delete user. I entered a new 16-digit master code. The lock chirped. He was gone. I took the SIM card out of my old phone, the one he had all the numbers for, and I snapped it in half. I ordered pizza. I sat on the sofa, Pixel, sensing the storm had finally passed, jumped up and curled into my lap, pressing his warm body against my chest. I opened my laptop. I went to my contact list. Chris Andrews, emergency contact. I hit the delete key. Then I opened my secure drive. I looked at the folder. Evidence portfolio final, zip, all those months of pain, all those screenshots, all those audio files, my entire case. I right-clicked, and I moved it to the trash. I put on music, loud, the kind of jazz he always said was just noise. I ate my pizza. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I sat in my own house, in the quiet, and I wasn't listening. I wasn't listening for a key in the lock. I wasn't listening for the garage door. I wasn't waiting for a text about a late meeting on a Thursday. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It wasn't an ending. It was the beginning. It was a clean, empty, perfectly updated system. And I was the administrator. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are listening from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories. Like this video, and if you want to support this story, please hit that hype button so more people can hear it.